The text message that destroyed my son arrived while I was buying his wedding gift. Don't go Saturday. Run. I'm James Sullivan, 64, and I'd built a $42 million construction empire over 40 years. I thought I could read people. You don't survive in the construction business without learning when someone's lying to your face. I was wrong. I'd been blind to the biggest lie of all. My own son was planning to steal everything I'd ever built, and he was going to start by having me declared insane. The Cartier watch gleamed under the jeweler's lamp, an $8,000 Tank Française that Mike would have loved, or at least the Mike I thought I knew would have loved it. An excellent choice for such a special occasion, the sales associate said. Your son will treasure it. My son's wedding. The words tasted different now, heavy with something I couldn't name yet. Mike wasn't my biological son. I'd married his mother Kate when he was 6, after her first husband died, but we'd made it legal with adoption papers 30 years ago. He was mine in every way that mattered, or so I'd thought. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. I'll explain everything, but don't go home today. Trust me. The watch blurred. My hands tightened around the phone. Sir, is everything all right? Just wedding nerves. The lie came easily. Years of contract negotiations had taught me to maintain composure. But inside, my mind was already analyzing threats, calculating risks, preparing for war. I completed the purchase mechanically and headed straight for the Mall of America's parking garage. Whoever sent those messages knew about the wedding, knew my number, wanted me afraid. They'd succeeded. I checked into the Hilton Minneapolis downtown instead of going home. The room felt sterile and empty as I dialed the unknown number for the 8th time. This time, someone answered. James, thank God you called. The voice hit me like a physical blow. Rob Mitchell. Rob Mitchell, my former business partner. We'd built Sullivan Construction together until his drinking destroyed our partnership 8 years ago. The split had been ugly. Lawyers, accusations, a friendship dissolved in bitterness. But I'd heard he'd been sober for 6 years now. I know we haven't spoken since everything went down, Rob said, his voice urgent. But I couldn't let this happen without warning you. What's happening? I was at Stephen Parker's law office today, settling my mother's estate. They put me in a conference room to wait, and James, Mike's file was on the table, left open. I saw guardianship paperwork, psychiatric evaluation forms, your name on every document. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? Your son is planning to have you declared mentally incompetent. Parker's already drawn up the papers. They've got a psychiatrist lined up, some doctor named Morrison. Once they have his evaluation, they'll petition for guardianship and sell Sullivan Construction. The hotel room spun. That's impossible. Mike would never. I took photos of the documents, James. I can send them to you. It's all there. The timeline, the procedures, everything. Rob's voice softened. I'm sorry. I know this is the last thing you want to hear before his wedding. Why are you telling me this? After everything between us? Because whatever went down between us, you gave me a chance when nobody else would. You made me a partner when I was just some kid with a GED and a tool belt. Maybe old partners should still look out for each other. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to my ear, as Rob explained what he'd discovered. Mike and his fiancée Jessica had been planning this for months. They'd scheduled my psychiatric evaluation for Tuesday, 3 days after the wedding. By the end of next week, I could lose everything. There's more, Rob said. I did some digging after I saw those papers. Jessica has gambling debts, $185,000 to 3 different casinos, plus another $40,000 to a private lender with organized crime connections. They're planning to sell your company to Consolidated Construction for $28 million, way below market value, just to get liquid cash fast. $28 million? Sullivan Construction was worth at least $42 million. They were planning to sell my life's work for 2/3 its value, pocket the cash, and warehouse me in some nursing home while they paid off Jessica's debts. James, they mentioned having documented your memory problems. Apparently, they've been building a case. Comments about you seeming confused, forgetting things, setting up witnesses for Morrison's evaluation. I thought about the last few months. Mike asking repeatedly if I was feeling okay. Jessica's concerned comments about my forgetfulness at family dinners. Every suggestion that I should slow down, maybe think about retirement. They'd been systematically undermining my credibility, preparing the ground for my destruction. Thank you, Rob. My voice sounded hollow in the empty room. I mean it. Watch your back. And James? Don't let them know you know. Not yet. After he hung up, I sat in that hotel room and let myself feel the grief for exactly 5 minutes. I thought about Kate on her deathbed, whispering, "Take care of our son." I thought about the 6-year-old boy who'd asked if I'd be his new daddy. Then I locked the grief away. I had work to do. Wednesday morning, I visited Stephen Parker's office before official business hours. The weekend security guard knew me. I'd done the concrete work on this tower 12 years ago. "Mr. Sullivan, good to see you. Heading up to Parker's office?" "Just picking up some documents. Estate planning review." Parker's receptionist looked surprised when I entered. "Mr. Sullivan, I don't have you on the schedule. Last-minute matter. Is Stephen available?" I made my voice slightly uncertain, like someone who might have forgotten an appointment. Parker emerged, surprise flickering across his features. "James, what brings you in?" "I wanted to review my will before Mike's wedding, getting my affairs in order." I shuffled slightly, playing the aging man concerned about mortality. "Mike mentioned you'd helped him with some legal matters. Made me think it was time to update things." "Of course, come in." For 20 minutes, I played my part perfectly. Asked about will provisions, power of attorney. Then, casually, "Mike mentioned something about guardianship procedures. What does that entail?" Parker's fingers tightened on his pen. Guardianship is established when someone can no longer make sound decisions due to mental incapacity, requires medical evaluation and court approval. What kind of evaluation? Psychiatric assessment by a licensed professional, someone like Dr. David Morrison, who I often work with. Got him. He just confirmed his connection without me having to dig. "Has Mike asked you about this?" "For me?" Parker's face went carefully blank. "James, anything between me and other clients is privileged. Even if that client is my son, asking about procedures to have me declared incompetent?" I dropped the confused act, let him see the sharp intelligence I'd been hiding. "You've got 24 hours to withdraw from representing Mike on any matters related to me. If you don't, I'll report this ethics violation to every regulatory body I can find. Are we clear?" Parker had gone gray. Crystal clear. One piece of their conspiracy had just collapsed. Back at the hotel, I made more calls. First to Blackwood Investigations. I need comprehensive background checks on Jessica Chen and Dr. David Morrison. Rush job. Money's no object. Within 48 hours, I had everything. Jessica's gambling debts were actually $225,000 total, worse than Rob reported. The lenders had connections to organized crime. She had until the end of the month to pay, or face serious consequences. Dr. Morrison's history was equally damning. 2 investigations for insurance fraud. One case where he'd falsified psychiatric evaluations in a custody dispute. Never convicted, but the pattern was clear. He was a doctor for hire. They'd chosen their conspirators poorly, desperate and dirty, just like them. My second call went to Lawrence Chen, Minneapolis's most respected elder law attorney. "Lawrence, I need new testamentary documents, complete will revision, durable power of attorney, medical directives. I want explicit language that any attempts to challenge my mental capacity will result in disinheritance and criminal prosecution. James, what's going on? How fast can you prepare these? If it's urgent, tonight. Make it happen. By Wednesday evening, I had legally ironclad documents. My new will left $38 million to various charities, primarily Minneapolis Children's Hospital. Another $4 million established the Catherine Sullivan Memorial, scholarship fund for construction students. Mike's name appeared exactly once, as explicitly disinherited, with detailed explanation that any contest attempts would result in criminal fraud referrals. Thursday morning, I went to Sullivan Construction for the first time since Rob's warning. My assistant Margaret looked surprised. "Mr. Sullivan, I thought you'd be focused on wedding preparations." "I have urgent business first." I unlocked my office and began securing the company. I contacted our 3 board directors individually: Linda Morrison, a retired federal judge, Thomas Wright, an industry veteran, and Sarah Mitchell, Rob's wife. Not a formal meeting, but individual consultations. Each reviewed my evidence separately and signed written consents Thursday evening, approving immediate actions to protect the company. By Thursday afternoon, I'd changed every password and access code. Mike's administrative access? Revoked. His signature authority on contracts? Removed. His keys to the equipment yard? Deactivated. The fortress was locked. He just didn't know it yet. Friday morning, I stayed at the office, avoiding home, avoiding Mike and Jessica. I reviewed my evidence one final time: Rob's photos of the legal documents, background checks on Jessica and Morrison, recordings of my conversation with Parker, the new will that cut Mike out completely. Everything was ready. Friday evening, I allowed myself one moment of weakness. I pulled up photos on my phone. Mike at 6 years old, gap-toothed and grinning. Mike at 12, both of us in matching hard hats at a construction site. Mike at 18, graduating high school. Kate beaming beside us. "Take care of our son," Kate had whispered in those final days. I'd kept that promise for 15 years after her death. I'd raised him alone, taught him everything I knew about business and honor and family. This was how he repaid it. I deleted the photos. Tomorrow, I would need to be cold. Tomorrow, I would execute the most important negotiation of my life. And this time, I held all the cards. And Saturday morning arrived clear and bright. Perfect weather for a wedding. Perfect weather for an execution. I dressed in my best suit, straightened my tie, and picked up the leather portfolio containing all my evidence. The Cartier bag sat on the hotel desk, $8,000 worth of misplaced love. I'd give it to him anyway, let him remember what he'd thrown away for money. By 2 p.m., I was walking into Riverview Banquet Hall, ready to destroy my son. Riverview Banquet Hall stretched elegantly along the Mississippi River, floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of water I'd loved since childhood. I'd paid $62,000 for this venue, another $30,000 for flowers and catering. Money spent celebrating what I'd thought was my son's happiness. The irony tasted bitter. "Mr. Sullivan, the sound system is ready for inspection." David from Thompson Audio Visual led me to the head table where wireless microphones sat beside elegant place settings, professional speakers positioned strategically throughout the hall. "The microphones connect automatically to your phone," David explained. "Just activate Bluetooth and anything you play broadcasts through all speakers." "Perfect. Everyone needs to hear my speech clearly." I tested the microphone briefly. My voice amplified across the empty hall, reaching every corner. Every witness would hear every word. At 4 p.m., 150 guests arrived, family I'd specifically invited to witness this. My sister Carol from Phoenix, my brother Richard from Chicago, cousins who hadn't seen each other since Kate's funeral. They thought they were celebrating a wedding. They were about to witness an execution. "James, you look wonderful." Carol embraced me warmly. "I'm so glad you invited everyone." "I wanted the whole family here for this special day," I said, meaning it in ways she couldn't understand yet. Mike worked the room with practiced charm, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. I overheard him telling Richard about the company's bright future, how grateful he was for my mentorship, how he planned to honor my legacy. Every word a lie. Jessica circulated in her white dress, radiant and beautiful. She touched my arm with manufactured tenderness. "Dad, how are you feeling? You seemed confused this morning." I hadn't seen her this morning. She was inventing symptoms. "Just emotional," I replied. "A father doesn't see his son marry every day." Behind her eyes, I caught the calculation. She was collecting anecdotes for Morrison's psychiatric report. The ceremony began at 5 p.m. I walked Mike down the aisle, traditionally the mother's role. But Kate was gone. He held my arm like he had at her funeral 15 years ago. "We're a team," I'd promised him that terrible day. "You and me, always." Always. What a foolish promise that had been. Mike's voice rang clear through the chapel. "I promise to honor you, to stand by you, to forsake all others." Each word was a knife. Jessica promised to love and cherish in sickness and in health. I thought about Tuesday's psychiatric evaluation, scheduled 3 days after their honeymoon. When Mike vowed to be faithful and true, I thought about the $28 million sale to Consolidated Construction, my life's work sold for pennies on the dollar. The minister said, "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder." I thought, God wasn't joining this marriage. Greed was. And I was the only one in this chapel who knew it was already over. The reception began at 6 p.m. Dinner service started at 6:30. Salmon and filet mignon I barely tasted. Around me, family members laughed and celebrated, champagne flowing freely, the mood joyous and light. They had no idea what was coming. At 6:45 p.m., during dinner, Jessica found me alone near the dessert table. "Dad, we need to talk." Her voice dripped concern. "Mike and I think you should see Dr. Morrison. He specializes in memory issues for people your age." I looked up from my plate. "Who's Dr. Morrison?" "A psychiatrist, very well regarded. He could help with your episodes." "Episodes?" I let confusion cloud my face. "The hotel stay, forgetting things. Dad, we're worried." She sat beside me, took my hand. "We love you. We just want to make sure you're cared for." Her eyes held calculation, not love. She was measuring my decline, documenting symptoms. "That's very thoughtful, sweetheart." I patted her hand. "It's nice to have family who cares so much." Her smile was radiant with victory she hadn't earned yet. Behind that smile, I saw exactly who she was, a predator counting money she thought was already hers. At 7:30 p.m., Mike cornered me near the bar while Jessica was occupied with guests. "Dad, I know this might seem sudden." His voice carried genuine anguish. "But you're 64. You've never updated your will. What if something happens to you? Jessica and I would get nothing. So you decided to take it before I could give it? We're protecting our future, our family's future." He actually believed it. "You built this company for me, right? For your son?" That's when I understood. Jessica hadn't corrupted him. She'd just given him permission to act on greed that was always there, hidden beneath 30 years of "I love you, Dad." "I built it for my son," I agreed quietly. I just didn't realize my son died somewhere along the way. His face went pale, but he didn't argue. At 7:45 p.m., The wedding coordinator approached. "Mr. Sullivan, whenever you're ready for your father of the groom speech." I stood slowly, accepting the wireless microphone with steady hands. Conversations gradually quieted as guests noticed me preparing to speak. Expectant faces turned toward me, champagne glasses raised for the traditional toast. Mike and Jessica sat beside me at the head table, glowing with newlywed happiness and secret anticipation of inherited wealth. They had no idea what was coming. "Friends and family," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the professional sound system. "Thank you all for being here tonight." Warm applause rippled through the crowd. "Today is indeed a special day, a day of truth, a day of family, a day of discovering who people really are." The applause faded into uncertain quiet. I pulled out my phone. "I want to share something important about marriage and trust. Marriage requires absolute honesty between partners," I continued, connecting my phone to the audio system. The Bluetooth icon appeared on screen. "Unfortunately, some people view marriage differently, as an opportunity for financial gain rather than emotional partnership." "Dad, what are you doing?" Mike's whisper was urgent. "Telling the truth, son. Isn't that what families do?" I pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the hall with devastating clarity. "He's not even blood. Why should Mike feel guilty? The old man's had his run. It's time for us to take what we deserve." Gasps echoed throughout the reception hall. Guests stared in shock at the head table where Jessica's face had gone completely white. Mike's voice emerged next. "Dad barely leaves the house anymore. We've been documenting his memory problems. Morrison's evaluation Tuesday will confirm everything. By Friday we'll have guardianship and can start liquidating assets." The hall erupted in chaos. Family members stood from their tables, voices rising in shock and anger. Carol's face showed pure horror. Richard slammed his champagne glass down, amber liquid splashing across white linen. "This is a misunderstanding," Jessica shouted, jumping to her feet. "He's confused. He's mixing things up." "Let me clear up any confusion." I produced the leather portfolio from beneath my chair. "These are legal documents from Stephen Parker's office. Guardianship procedures, incompetency declarations, asset transfer protocols, a complete roadmap for stealing my company." I held up page after page while guests stared in stunned silence. The wedding celebration had transformed into a courtroom. Furthermore, I discovered that Jessica has gambling debts totaling $225,000 to casinos and private lenders with organized crime connections. Their plan was to sell my $42 million company to Consolidated Construction for $28 million, 2/3 its value, pocket the difference to pay her debts, and warehouse me in a nursing home. More gasps. Several elderly relatives walked toward the exit, unable to stomach the revelation. Dr. David Morrison, the psychiatrist they hired to declare me incompetent, has been investigated twice for insurance fraud and falsifying evaluations. Stephen Parker, the lawyer preparing their documents, has withdrawn from the case after I confronted him yesterday. Mike found his voice. "You don't understand. We were trying to help you. You've been declining, forgetting things." "Really? Which things have I forgotten, Mike?" I let steel enter my voice. "Was it the Henderson project, where I caught the environmental permit error that saved us 6 months? Or maybe yesterday, when I successfully revoked your access to company accounts, removed your signature authority, and secured the board's unanimous support to exclude you permanently from Sullivan Construction?" The color drained from Mike's face. "You can't do that." "I already did. The company is locked down completely. You have zero access." I turned to address the entire hall. "Yesterday, I executed a new will. My estate, $42 million, will be distributed as follows: $38 million to charities, primarily Minneapolis Children's Hospital. Another $4 million to establish the Catherine Sullivan Memorial Scholarship Fund." I paused. Mike's name appears exactly once, as explicitly disinherited, with detailed explanation that any contest attempts will result in criminal prosecution for fraud. Dad, please. Mike's voice broke. We can explain everything. There's one more thing we need to discuss. I pulled another document from my portfolio. Jessica made an interesting comment in those recordings. She said, "He's not even blood. Why should Mike feel guilty?" The hall went completely silent. I assume she was referring to the fact that I'm not your biological father, that I married your mother when you were 6, that I'm just your stepfather. I watched Mike's face, saw the desperate calculation. He was going to play that card. "You're not my real father," Mike said, his voice desperate and angry. "You never were." The words should have hurt. They didn't. I'd prepared for this. You're right that I'm not your biological father. Your mother was a widow when we met. Your birth father died when you were 4. I held up the legal document. But this is what your mother and I signed when you were 6 years old. We made you mine, legally, completely, forever. I looked directly at Mike. The adoption decree lists my occupation as construction worker. Your mother's as secretary. We had $4,200 in savings. We were nobody special, but we chose each other, and we chose you. My voice carried across the silent hall. That morning, you built a block tower that kept falling over. I showed you how to fix the foundation. You looked up at me and asked, "Are you going to be my new daddy?" I said, "Yes." You held out your hand to shake on it, like you'd seen adults do. Your mother cried in the doorway. I felt the weight of 30 years in every word. I chose you that day, Mike, and every day after. I chose you when I taught you to ride a bike, when you started high school, when your mother died and we held each other up because we were all we had left. I chose to be your father every single day for 30 years. I watched Mike's face as his own voice had filled the hall earlier. The moment of recognition, the dawning horror as he realized I knew everything, the desperate calculation that had failed. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the 6-year-old boy who'd once trusted me completely. That boy was still in there somewhere, behind the greed and the lies. That's what made this so much worse. I wasn't destroying a stranger. I was executing my own son. My voice hardened. I chose you. You chose greed. The silence that followed was absolute. I set down the microphone and looked across the reception hall where half the guests were already gathering their belongings to leave. The elegant celebration had dissolved into chaos. Family members arguing, accusations flying, crystal stemware shattering on marble floors where relatives confronted each other, forced to choose sides. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending what was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, you've witnessed justice. I picked up the Cartier bag I'd placed beneath my chair earlier. Mike, this was going to be your wedding gift, an $8,000 Cartier watch. I was going to tell you how proud I was, how your mother would have loved seeing you so happy. I set the bag on the table in front of him. Keep it. Consider it compensation for 30 years of my life that you've decided meant nothing. Mike was crying now, his careful wedding composure destroyed, mascara-streaked tears running down his face. Dad, I'm sorry. We made a mistake. Please, we can fix this. You made a choice, Mike. You chose to destroy me rather than build your own life. You chose to steal rather than earn. I looked at Jessica, whose expression had hardened into pure fury. And you chose the wrong mark. I survived 40 years in construction. Did you really think I'd be an easy target? Jessica's voice turned venomous. You vindictive old bastard. We needed that money. You're going to die with millions while we have nothing. You had everything, I said quietly. You had family. You had my trust. You had a future in a company I would have gladly shared. You threw it all away for money you were too impatient to wait for. I walked toward the exit with measured dignity, my portfolio under my arm. Behind me, Mike's sobs echoed through the sound system, while Jessica launched into increasingly frantic denials, blaming me, blaming Mike, blaming everyone but herself. Their wedding reception had become their public trial and conviction. At the exit, Rob Mitchell waited with his wife Sarah. "James, are you okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I will be." Sarah hugged me, and I let myself accept the comfort for just a moment. What they did, it's unforgivable. Most betrayals are. I straightened my shoulders. But Sullivan Construction will survive this, and so will I. Rob gripped my arm. "If you need anything, anything at all. You already gave me what I needed most, the truth. Thank you, old friend." I walked through the banquet hall's entrance into the cool Minneapolis evening. Behind me, 150 witnesses would carry the story of what they'd seen tonight. By tomorrow, everyone in the business community would know exactly what had happened. Mike and Jessica would find no sympathy, no second chances, no way back from what they'd tried to do. My Lincoln Navigator sat alone in the parking lot. The drive home took 37 minutes through Saturday evening traffic. Inside that car, I finally let the tears come. Not for Mike, the man who'd tried to destroy me, but for the 6-year-old boy who'd once asked if I'd be his new daddy. That boy was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed at all. Epilogue. 2 years later. The Catherine Sullivan Memorial Scholarship Fund awarded its first grants at the University of Minnesota, $250,000 to 15 students pursuing careers in construction and engineering. I attended the ceremony, shaking hands with young people who reminded me why I'd built Sullivan Construction in the first place, to create something lasting, to help the next generation build their own foundations. After the ceremony, I found an envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. No return address, but I recognized Mike's handwriting immediately. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dad, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what Jessica and I did was unforgivable, and I have to live with that every day. Jessica and I divorced 8 months ago. She's in rehab for gambling addiction. I'm working as a project manager for a small firm in Duluth, starting over from nothing like you did 40 years ago. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I destroyed. You chose to be my father, and I chose to betray you. That's something I'll carry for the rest of my life. I'm sorry, Dad. For all of it. Mike." I sat in my car for a long time, holding that letter. Around me, scholarship recipients celebrated with their families, their laughter carrying through the parking lot, life continuing, generation after generation. Kate's voice echoed in my memory. "Take care of our son." I'd kept that promise, even when keeping it meant destroying the life he'd tried to build on my ruins. Even when it meant standing alone at a wedding reception and executing my own child in front of everyone who mattered. I pulled out my phone and typed carefully. Some bridges burn completely. Others take years to rebuild. I haven't decided which this is yet. I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I drove home to the house Kate and I had shared, where photos of Mike's childhood still lined the hallway walls. Photos of a little boy who'd once shaken my hand solemnly and called me Dad for the first time. Family, I'd learned, wasn't just about blood or legal documents or even love. It was about choices made every day, for better or worse. Mike had chosen greed over family 2 years ago. Now I had to choose whether fathers get second chances, or if some betrayals are unforgivable, even from your son. The answer, I suspected, would take more than 2 years to find. But for the first time since that terrible wedding day, I allowed myself to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, some bridges could be rebuilt. one careful stone at a time.